Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another daily senior safety advice podcast where we talk about everything that helps older adults stay safe, independent, and thriving at home. I'm Esther Kane, a retired occupational therapist, certified aging in place specialist, and a dementia care specialist. And I'm so glad that you chose to spend a few minutes with me today. So, hey, before we get going, please visit seniorsafetyadvice.com for more tips, tools, and resources on senior safety and so much more. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, YouTube channel, so that you never miss an episode. We put episodes out every single day. And if something you hear today feels helpful, then please share it. Sharing this show is one of the very best things you can do to support it. Now, today we're going to be talking about something that I'm beginning to experience, and that is hearing loss. But we're going to be talking about it probably not in the way you're expecting, because this isn't just about turning up the volume on the TV or asking people to repeat themselves. I'm already doing that a lot. New research is showing that hearing loss has a direct connection to fall risk in older adults. Great, something for me to look forward to. And when you understand why, it changes everything about how we think about this. So let's dig in, because this one matters more than most people realize. All right, so let me start with a number that stopped me in my tracks the first time I read it. Studies have found that even mild hearing loss can increase a person's risk of falling by up to 3 times. Yep, that's what I said, 3 times. And as hearing loss gets more significant, that risk goes up even further. Now, when most people hear that, their first reaction is, what? How does your hearing have anything to do with whether you fall or not? It seems like two completely separate things. And that's what I want to unpack today, because once you understand the connection, it becomes crystal clear. And it also becomes clear what we can do about it. All right, throughout my career as an OT, I routinely screened for balance and fall risk. But the link between hearing loss and falls wasn't always front and center in clinical conversations, at least not when I was an OT, even though the research has been pointing in this direction for many years. That gap between research and everyday practice is exactly why episodes like this matter. They're so important at this time. All right, so here's what's happening in the body. Your sense of balance doesn't come from just one place. Most people think that balance is all about the legs, or maybe the inner ear in isolation. But the truth is that your brain is constantly pulling together information from 3 different sources to keep you upright and stable. The first source is your vision, what you can see around you. The second is your proprioception. That's the feedback your muscles and joints send to your brain about where your body is in space. And the third is your vestibular system, the inner ear, which detects movement and helps with spatial orientation. Now here's where hearing loss enters the picture. The cochlea, the part of the inner ear that processes sound, well, that sits right alongside the vestibular system. They share blood supply, they share nerve pathways, and they're deeply interconnected. So when there's damage or deterioration in the hearing part of the inner ear, it very often affects the balance part too. They go together, hand in hand. Beyond that, research from Johns Hopkins and other leading institutions has identified a second major factor, cognitive load. What that means in plain language is that when someone has hearing loss, their brain has to work much harder just to process what they're hearing. Every conversation, every background noise, every sound in the environment requires extra mental effort to sort out and make sense of. And that mental effort, that extra cognitive load, comes at a cost. It uses up brain resources that would otherwise be devoted to other things. Things like monitoring where your feet are, noticing a change in the floor surface, catching yourself when you start to lose your footing. When those resources are being pulled toward just trying to hear, there's less bandwidth available for the automatic moment-to-moment work of staying balanced. Think of it like a computer running too many programs at once. The processing power is shared. When hearing loss forces the brain to work overtime on sound, the subtler, faster work of balance and spatial awareness gets slower and less reliable. That's when falls can happen. There's a third piece to this too. And this one it's more behavioral, but believe me, it's just as important. Older adults with hearing loss often become less aware of their environment, not because they're not paying attention, but because they simply can't hear the cues that normally signal something is happening around them. Things like the sound of someone approaching from behind, a cartwheel squeaking at the grocery store, a car engine in a parking lot, a step that creaks under someone's weight. These are all auditory cues that help us navigate the world around us safely. And when they're missing, when you can't hear them, the environment becomes more unpredictable and more dangerous. My husband had a startle reflex, and he had a great hearing loss. So it came to the point where if I walked into a room, he did not hear me coming down the hallway. So when he saw me all of a sudden come through the door, he would jump, and whatever he had in his hand would fly, and it took a minute or two to recover from that. So it got to the point where I had to clap or maybe put bells on my shoes, I don't know, but I had to be loud enough on my way to a room if I knew that he was in there so that he could hear me coming and anticipate that I would be walking in the room. So you have to think about those kinds of things, because if someone is surprised by you suddenly appearing and startle them, they could fall as well, if they don't have a proper balance to begin with, or they're using a walker, or I don't know, anything like that. So think about that. Now, couple all of this with the fact that many older adults with hearing loss begin to limit their activities. They walk more cautiously or avoid certain environments, which can lead to decreased physical conditioning over time. We all know that if you don't move, you're going to lose it. Less activity means less muscle strength. Less muscle strength means more fall risk. It's a cycle that starts with the ears and ends with a trip to the emergency room. If you or your parent or loved one has been moving more slowly, hesitating at curbs, or seeming more cautious in public spaces, don't assume that it's just aging. It may be that their hearing loss is making the environment feel less predictable. Getting a hearing evaluation is a very smart first step, if you haven't yet. Now let's talk about what's new in the research, because the last few years have brought some genuinely exciting developments in how we understand and address this connection of hearing loss and falls. One of the most significant findings came from a large clinical trial called the ACHIEVE study. It's the Aging and Cognitive Health Evaluation in Elders study. This was a major research effort involving nearly 1,000 older adults, and one of its central questions was whether treating hearing loss with hearing aids could protect cognitive function. The results, published back in 2023, showed meaningful benefits, particularly for adults who were at higher risk for cognitive decline. And because hearing, cognition, and balance are also interconnected, findings like this ripple outward in important ways. Separately, research continues to reinforce that treating hearing loss, even mild hearing loss, with properly fitted hearing aids significantly improves spatial awareness, reaction time, and the ability to process environmental information, all of which directly affects fall risk. Now, I do want to tell you that hearing aids, I'm not an audiologist, but I have a good friend actually who's an audiologist, Hearing aids have changed enormously. Modern devices are small, discreet, and significantly more effective than what was available even 10 years ago. If your parent dismissed hearing aids years ago, well, it may be well worth revisiting that conversation with a current audiologist. So here's something that I want to be especially clear about because I think it gets lost in these conversations. Hearing loss is not just an inconvenience. It is not just about missing words in conversation. It is a health issue, one with real, documented consequences for physical safety, cognitive health, and quality of life. And yet, surveys consistently show that older adults wait an average of 7 to 10 years between first noticing a hearing loss and then actually seeking treatment. 7 to 10 years. Now that is a long time to be running at a disadvantage, especially when effective help is available. So why would you do that? Well, what can we actually do? Well, let me walk you through the most important action steps. The first one is pretty simple. Get a hearing evaluation. If you're a parent or if you haven't had one recently or ever, then this is the place to start. A licensed audiologist can assess exactly what's happening with the hearing and with the vestibular system. Many people are surprised to find that their hearing is worse than they realize because the loss tends to happen gradually and people adapt without even noticing. Second, if hearing aids are recommended, then take that seriously. There's still a lot of stigma around hearing aids for some older adults. It feels like admitting something, but framing it differently can help. These are not just devices that make things louder. They're safety devices. They help the brain do less work, which frees up the resources needed to stay balanced and aware. And honestly, who wants to be with someone who's constantly going, "What? What'd you say? What?" So get those hearing aids. Believe me, the people around you will be so happy. Now, third, fall prevention isn't just about the home environment. It's also about the person inside the home. Balance training, strength exercises, and working with a physical therapist on gait and stability can all help buffer some of the fall risk associated with hearing loss. These don't replace treating the hearing loss, but they work alongside it. In practice, the most effective fall prevention plans that I work with clients always address multiple factors at once. The home, the home environment, the person's physical conditioning, their sensory health, and including, of course, vision, hearing. No single intervention does everything. It's the combination that makes the real difference. Okay, fourth, pay attention to medication side effects. Some medications, including certain antibiotics, diuretics, and even high doses of aspirin, can affect both hearing and balance. Now, this is called ototoxicity. If your parent has had a recent medication change and you've noticed new balance issues or changes in their hearing, it's worth mentioning to the doctor. And fifth, think about the environment with hearing loss in mind. Reduce background noise where possible. Make sure important alerts like smoke detectors and doorbells have visual components such as flashing lights, not in place of sound, but in addition to sound. And in the home, make sure that pathways are clear and well lit because someone whose brain is working harder to process sound has, like a computer, they have less bandwidth to spare for navigating a cluttered hallway. And actually should declutter the areas anyway, just makes it safer in general. Smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms that include a strobe light and a bed shaker if needed are essential for anyone with significant hearing loss, especially at night when hearing aids are typically not being worn. Now, these are widely available and not expensive. You can even find them on Amazon. It's a simple upgrade that could save a life. So let me wrap up today with this. Hearing loss is so easy to minimize. By the people experience it, experiencing it and by their families. It happens slowly. People adapt. They smile. They nod. They pull back from situations that are too noisy, and life goes on. And oftentimes they leave conversations and parties and events and group gatherings having little to no interaction with everyone or little to no comprehension of what was spoken. And that's sometimes worse than actually just not going, being alone, not going at all. So what the research that I mentioned here is telling us is that hearing loss that goes unaddressed is quietly chipping away at safety, balance, and cognitive reserve. It doesn't announce itself. It just gradually shifts the odds. But the good news is, and there is good news, is that treating hearing loss can help. It helps to get hearing aids. It helps to work with an audiologist, doing balance training, making thoughtful changes to the home environment. All of these things can genuinely move the needle. So if you've been putting off getting a hearing evaluation for yourself or for a parent, let today be the nudge. Make the appointment, have the conversation, take the next step, because what sounds like a small thing isn't a small thing at all. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. This is the kind of episode that I love bringing to you. Something that looks like a narrow topic on the surface, but opens up into something that can really matter and affect your daily life. Not only yours, but the people around you. For more tips, resources, and information on senior safety and aging in place, please visit us at seniorsafetyadvice.com. There's so much there waiting for you. And if you're looking for local aging in place professionals, audiologists who specialize in older adults, or fall prevention specialists in your area, then please head on over to aginginplacedirectory.com. It's a great place to start. Please subscribe to the podcast or our YouTube channel, both, of course, if you haven't already. Share this episode, especially with anyone who's been dismissing their hearing loss as no big deal. You just might change their mind. All right, I'm Esther Kane. I want to thank you so much for listening and for caring, and I'll see you right back here. Stay safe out there.